Just to let you understand what we're going to talk about today, more or less. This is a course I teach at Lewis University in the Faculty of Economics.
Sorry, what?
Lewis Rome. Economics. I've been teaching abroad as well, but now is at Lewis Economic. I teach this kind of thesis. The thesis is about how important the technology of digital technology is changing the world. That's the real stuff that, in my opinion, has not very well understood over the years. The course has been very successful. It's almost, I would say, now we are reaching the 7 years. This year will be participating in the course. That is a complementary course in the Lewis Economics School. More than 70 students. So there is a lot of success. What you're going to see is a very small piece of it. It's a long course. It takes 60 hours of teaching. So we're going to just take very few bits about this.
We have time.
60 hours, yes. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure you will resist. So what we're going to talk about is what is, first of all, the first question that I asked to the student, and also I've been asking myself, what is digital economy? What is all about this? What does it mean? Everybody talks about this, but there is not a lot of definition, and there are a lot of problems even to measure at different levels. So that's the first bit. Partially of this presentation, most of this presentation is in English. Some slides at the beginning are in Italian. That doesn't matter, we're gonna see. Okay, well, okay, about me, it doesn't matter, we can go. There is a book. We're gonna put some copies of the book here if you need. There is the English version ready. So the first thing, the term of digital has been used about 10 years ago in a book that was launched by a Canadian strategist that you know, Don Whipscott. And what we should think is, what is this digital area in your opinion? What we mean for digital? Why we call this area digital area? Why? Why everybody's talking about this? Please. But why we think, and why you are here, it means everybody feels it's an important. Why is so important? Why? Which are the key drivers?
It's affecting business models.
It's impacting business model, yes. But what does it mean? Please.
It's kind of like a pace car. Like the old companies have to learn new things, and it gives all the companies, it's an equalizer. Everybody starts anew.
Well, that's a good point, but maybe it's not the right point, because if it was just an equalizer, probably it will be something like electricity. Everybody needs it, and that's it. So what is the key point? Why digital is so important for the entire humanity? Which are the key differential points?
Communication.
For sure.
Changing communication.
Yeah, changes communication. Well, we can go over and over about this discussion, and this is part of the exercise I do to university, because it's exactly now to think to something that everybody implicitly thinks that is given. It's obvious, it is, but it's not. And to find the key reason why it's so important is much more difficult than it could appear to be. But there are reasons that has been researching a long time, and there are reasons why digital, and previous of that, what we've been talking about online, or we've been talking about internet, are so important. One thing has been said in the previous slide. There has been no other technology in the world that has been reaching such a huge coverage as internet. No other technology has been reaching now 3.5 billion inhabitants on Earth, so in such a limited amount of time. And the second point, for sure, This is a consumer technology. This is a revolution in the history of humanity, because normally high technology has been used by enterprise before, large enterprise, and then going down to small enterprise and finally entering consumer hand. As has been demonstrated also by the latest Apple mobile phone X10 or whatever they want to call it, you can get even facial recognition that there's plenty of companies not even thinking about in your end. So consumer digital era is the consumer power era that was not even before. And I can demonstrate different area where the consumer era is really coming. For the first time in life and history of humanity, your life can be really put on internet with your photos, your story. In the past, this was left just to few super rich or super powerful guys that was king or head of states or whatever. But now everybody of you could really make of his life and history. So it's changing. In any case, there's been, if we want to be a little bit more systematic, there's been three groups of technology that has been changing altogether the world. For sure that information technology, hardware technologies, in general, that has been based on one phenomenon that has been one of the largest phenomena ever, that has been miniaturization of chips. There are slides not here later that show you how we have been capable to increase by factors 10 the capability of chips, and the other side reducing the size. Without reducing the size, we will never have things like Internet of Things or the mobile. Mobile phone, cell phone nowadays are more or less the same powerful capability of a PC, and they are getting nearer and nearer. In fact, they are calling it a PC in a pocket. That was impossible. When I started, the first computers were so heavy you cannot even transport them. Now it's something you put in your pocket, and the future will be even much more volume than today. The other group is telecommunication. Without telecommunication, we couldn't be here. So the capability to invent a new generation, the third generation in particular, and the fourth generation, and now the fifth generation telecommunication, has been creating the capability to transmit and transport data and reduce the cost everywhere in the world. And the third area where we've been making very astonishing progress has been the sensors. Different sensor has been able to create the capability, for example, something that everybody uses a lot, for example, is the photos. Photos are sensors, they're CCD sensors. The CCD sensor has been changing the world, changing entirely the industry of photography forever. And the same I can say about microphone. I can say the same about what everybody of us use. Touch is based on another sensor. So all the sensors has been put together, has been changing, and will change again the world, because we are putting everywhere in the world something that we can use easily, or we can transform something that in the past was considered totally out of the reach of Internet of Things. So these three groups of technology are getting there. So without all these three technologies, we couldn't have a digital era as we have. And the other things that we have, of course, as I said, is that all this kind of new technology that in the past were going through a clear adoption curve, and the adoption curve at the beginning was clearly used by large enterprise, defense, and governmental area, are costly because they cost a lot of money, were secret, now comes directly into your hand, jumping all the other segments. So the adoption is massive, and the cycle is more or less given, more or less, I oversimplify, but more or less I give you the idea, by the cycle of release of new mobile phone. Every year there is a huge attention, and there is a new mobile phone coming out, packed with technology, and given directly to consumer, everybody about the use. And because of different area that we cannot investigate right now, but the business model of mobile phone that more or less is subsidized by telco that sell to you a costly mobile phone for loyalty reason, by installment, at that point, I think you can get this technology for, a fraction. That means 20, 30, 40, whatever dollars or euros it is by month that is acceptable, so it's made accessible. Super high-tech technology available to everybody. For example, I repeat, Apple is introducing this 3D. It's not the 2D. The 2D scanning recognition was introduced by Samsung, but it's a little bit fake because you can put a picture, you can put different things in front of you, not necessarily you. But the new technology coming out from Apple is 3D. 3D scanning facial recognition is super high tech. There's plenty of companies not even can afford it. In fact, you enter in a company with a normal smart card that is an RFID recognized just a piece of paper. The 3D face recognition is something astonishing as technology has made them available for very low cost, and this will influence the reducing of cost of the sensor itself, and this will make massive utilization. This is more or less the cycle. Stuff. So you will have, and you have today in many cases, much more technologies than the enterprise could afford. That's a clear, giant revolution in the world. Which are the key characteristics of the digital era? First of all, there is a potentiality to access knowledge and to create knowledge that has never been the case in the past. It's totally new to the world. In the past, and maybe some of you has been going to universities like me in another year where you have to do to the central or the national bookshop or the national library, waiting hours to get books and to get your thesis. It was also really a complicated, bureaucratic, is the book there, not can access it. And now all this kind of stuff are gone away. Of course, there is a production of and the accessibility of knowledge without any precedence, and that means also transmission and circulation between the entire globe that was not possible in the past. The other key difference that you know and you are using a lot is the personal media. What does it mean personal media? It means that you can personalize every kind of information the way you like. This is a clear trend. You can read not just a newspaper as has been given for hundreds of years, or television program as has been given to you for tens of years, or the music in a disc has been packaged by Music Corporation for tens of years, but you can create with Spotify your personal media program on music, and the same with YouTube and television and movie, etc. So that's what personal media means. That is a total individualization of access to also entertainment. This is something that has been made possible just by the combination of internet power and, of course, by telecommunication, as we said, and also mobile phone. Another thing that has been based has been changing, has maybe lateral, but also the research in universities changing is much more based on data, on capability to access data that was in the past, because of course now the reduction of cost is huge even in making research, at least in some area like human and social sciences. The other factor is clear that this kind of technology now is available in every place on the world, at least in places that are not so poor that they know even food. So we see something that was considered distant, like, for example, the China economy that is entering more and more in high-tech, very high speed, because the diffusion of this kind of technology, the accessibility to this kind of knowledge, the capability to distribute the knowledge around the world is making also high-tech. It was something in the past, a kind of differentiation for Western economy, making totally different. In fact, you see a lot of Asian economies getting access to super high-tech, and also the security of the world is changing, as you see now with North Korean case. Clearly, they access something like, the hydrogen technology and bombing, etc., much more accessible. It's a matter of fact. It's not just a case that is happening nowadays. Here, there are some definition of what digital economy is. There's been plenty of them. There's plenty of different stuff. In some areas, it's been called even the internet economy. So there is a little bit of, I would say, confusion about this. So the definition will not help a lot and will create some. So, and there are other authors, as I said, the first one to using the terms was Don Tapscott in '95, so it's more than 20 years that has been talking about. There has been also Nicolas Negroponte, that was one of, let's say, the one first book that has been talking about the switch of atoms and bits, meaning the switch between physical and non-physical economy. So there's been plenty of guys that has been talking. Somebody has been talking more recently about the zero marginal cost economy, where there are no marginal costs in digital economy, but it's false. It's not exactly, it's much more for public. It's not exactly a very good scientific definition. So something that could be more helpful in understanding what a digital economy is much more switching from definition that I'm not covering very well the stuff to which are the key components of it. For sure, you need personal computing, whatever is the way you're going to do. That doesn't mean a personal computer. It could be also the smartphone, as you know, and there are slides about this. The installed base of personal computer in the world is much lower than the smartphone. The smartphone is reaching 3 billion installed base in the world. The PC is now more estimated to 1.5 billion. So it's clear the personal computing is switching to smartphone computing more and more. Of course, you need all this kind of infrastructure. Otherwise, if you have not digital technology, wireless network, mobile devices, you have also a very complex technology that everybody gives for given, but it's super complex. That is the global positioning satellite. I don't know if you know how it works, but there are something depending on the kind of satellites network you use. Even when you use the simple Google Maps, there are between 32 and 37 satellites that have to be aligned in a limited number of 3, 6, depending where you are, just to give you the position where you are and to tell you where to go. We live in this kind of stuff like it was nothing, but it's very complex technology, like costly technology that was available for a long period just to military. GPS was used from USA military forces to attack the enemy, also to position their army. So it's something that now we use in everyday life, even going, to the bar, to the restaurant, to come here. In the future with the 5th generation, where the penetration of technology with telco will be higher, even inside the building will be possible. Nowadays, it's a little bit complex. It's not going through the building. But all this kind of stuff are giving us the impression that this kind of stuff is so useful that we need them, and because we need them, it's simple. And it's simple to be used, but it's a huge framework of technologies behind. So we have also new kind of digital economy is changing, as we said. For example, the payment process is totally changing from the exchange of pure money to virtual money. One of the cases was for example, when this kind of quantitative easing has been introduced by the USA and also by the European Bank, a lot of people were saying that the European Bank or the Federal Bank were printing money. They are not printing money. They are really in a virtual place, creating this kind of virtual money. Of course, they are the only one authorized. So. As every kind in the human story, there are opportunity and huge risk we entering, and the security is one of this. Of course, there's plenty of story where people have stolen money, have stolen identity. There is this digital, what they call digital identity, and but of course, this is part of the human being, so it's changing. One of the largest discussion that has been, but there is no clear definition about this, and there's a lot of opinion if in a digital economy will be a total replacement or not of workers. That's of course a huge impact on political and also social cohesion in our history. For sure, what is happening is distributing the income, distributing the capability and the specialization between nations. And of course, Italy is one of the countries that has been most affected because of this specialization of low, medium technology. Most of them has been going forever to much lower cost, like China. It has been clear that part of the process has been through digital capability to connect to them, to China, to order something there, to make them arrive in a decent amount of time, and this has been part of the process itself. Of course, all the economic activities in a digital economy makes a huge change between other historical periods. First one, that you don't need to move. There is no need to move people. You can order in China, you can call right now UK or whatever. In the past was not the case, and the kind of communication needed was not real time. Real time is one of the key differences in the digital. You can do this really anytime, depending just on whatever is available there, not sleeping or there is not a specific area. So you see that the one other things that is happening, and is happening even in Italy, there's one has been still nowadays one of the latest adopter of e-commerce, but Amazon and Alibaba are coming all other day and things like this. So where people are starting to buy more and more on electronic commerce, the impact is seen clearly when you go to retail. So the largest retailers and also small retailers are facing more and more competition and also close down. That's a worldwide trend, because of course at the end we see that is for the consumer it's much better to buy something from one of the largest catalog available. That could be one of these electronic markets. And on the other side, what is clear is that the cost is much more lower when you use even remote logistics than paying the salary of two people in a small shop at the end. That's what is happening. It's a swap between logistic costs and human being costs at the retail. I'm not saying that this is good, because also for, let's say, the town and ambience, the fact that you have light, that you have people also you meet, may be much better. But I think this is something that is going to happen every day. We don't see in Italy, but if you go in UK, even supermarket has electronic commerce. There is one. There is one supermarket just online. UK is the largest in the world. It's named Ocado. Maybe you've heard, maybe you don't. But they just sell purely every food online. They do not exist, and we see the same on banks, etc. So it's something that is coming. So we'll make a little bit our town a little bit more desert than they were today. But I don't see how we're going to make the difference.
Do you think it is happening even for hardware development?
What?
The remoting of people?
What do you mean by that?
If someone is building hardware startup, of course, if you're talking about hardware, you need to be in some physical place. And if you have a product that has some different parts and requires two or many people, and they have to put together hardware pieces in one single product, let's say a prototype. What do you think about the difficulties, the logistical difficulties about remoting into?
You mean that you work, you create, let's say, an airplane, you put a piece here, develop another piece in modular work. Yeah, but this is happening nowadays. It's already, if you go to Airbus industry, you see they They put together the Airbus in different part of Europe, and they put all the pieces together. And the same you can say for McDonnell and Douglas. They produce something in Europe, something even in Italy.
At least for single specific sections, they are.
Yeah, I mean, because communication and the capability to work real time, to have video communication real time is changing the world. It's clear. It's clear. And will change also, fortunately, unfortunately, the distribution of wealth. It's happening. It's happening. Why you should produce something in Italy when you can produce this in China? It's happening every other day. A lot of production that were made in Italy are low, medium technology, I don't know, are not produced here anymore. Italians are obliged to move to design piece of it, and then they send to China to produce it, because the cost of Italy is not anymore acceptable. And even what has been the first delocation process phase that was made, sending to Romania or lower cost, is not acceptable anymore. The only thing that still resists, but because of duty and custom duty, is automobile, not because automobile creates so much employment that is defended by the countries. So you can defend it, but you need duties, and then duties policy create, duties battle and custom battle between the countries. So it's something that is not easy to be done. Also, USA has been losing a huge quantity of capability manufacturing. All the hardware manufacturing is gone in PC, you know that. Now Trump is trying to recover and going back, but it's not easy, because when you produce this kind of chaos, something let's say between 5 and 10 times less, it's not a matter of you want to do it. There is no chance. Of course, many has been said, even it's also partially true, the entire economy is moving to information much more than it was in the past. Of course, still physical goods are changing, but of course, the more we go ahead and the more we have this kind of, let's say, digital economy, every kind of good will incorporate more and more information. This is true even for food. We would like to know where the food is coming, which kind of technology has been used, I don't know, fishing, or which place has been. So that was simply unthinkable some years ago. We would like to track down, every single step of, I don't know, feeding a pork or whatever. That's part of this new kind of economy. One thing that you will not see, but there are a lot of evidence in the research, is also because another thing is happening, that there is much more education in the world. People have been spending much more time at school. So people are much more alphabetic, really basically literate, so they can read that much more than was in the past to understand, for whatever they are, Italian or whatever, they can watch some movies of the early 60s, so after the Second World War, you can see the number of people that were not even able to read. This is totally changing the world, of course, because you cannot get access to information if you are not at least alphabetic capabilities. On the other side, there's oversimplification to access information through mobile phone, touch, etc., make this available to everybody. So now people are much more capable to analyze what they would like to have that was in the past. And they want more information that was in the past. So let's try to see which are at least, so out of this very quick lesson, which are the key features of the digital economy and make the digital economy and digital era different from what it was in the past. For sure, we are connected. Everybody say that, and it's clear. And this is very simple, and you see it because if you don't get Wi-Fi here, internet is coming down at home, and not even to talk about in the office. This is considered, or more or less, a disaster. Okay, it's plenty of people say, look, this is also a kind of, something not very sane. And there are also, kind of dependency, etc. And maybe it's true. I'm not saying that it's not. But it's everything in life could be good or not, depending on yourself, not depending on others. share it. This is something that has been said many times. Now we can, thanks to this communication technology, seamless integration, we can share a car, we can share things that was not even thinkable to share in the past. Huh? There is also, you know, when we talk about sharing, for example, Airbnb is something that has been made even thinkable just because of internet access of billions of persons. So well, you are using an asset, a typical asset that is not very well used, like, you know, home, that typically you are not using every room or every period of the year, and you can share it. Sharing, it seems a little bit, how to say, social and ethical. Really, you make a little bit of money out of an underutilized asset. So if you want to be, how to say, social or political, you say you share. Really, you make some money out of it. But to make, and the same for the car, say blah blah car, it seems so good, so ethical, so green, so blah blah. It's not. It's something simple that thanks to the digital technology, you create a way to, if you go from here to Milan today or whatever, you can send a message through blah blah car to everybody who want to go there and share the cost. But sharing the cost is that you have to go to Milan. You make some money out of it, otherwise you will pay everything out of it. That's the reality of fact. And the same for sharing your house. Maybe you don't want to do it, but maybe you make some money or you are not there. That's a very simple way to make it. So it's probably less ethical than people would like to see. What we share is something that has been a revolution that has been introduced by Facebook, and it's first really, it's our private information. It's astonishing how privacy has been changing between individuals. We are still discussing about privacy here and there, but really the fact is that we see where we are, what we're doing, which kind of food we are eating now to everybody in the world, because when we publish on Facebook or on Twitter or whatever, we are telling everybody what we are doing. This has been a huge cultural change. Was not the case. Before Facebook was almost an internet, a kind of net ethic not to publish private stuff. Now it's really happening the opposite. I just bought these shoes, I'm here, and of course the selfies, etc. So it's a demonstration of what has been said. We are going more and more toward the personalized media, where each of us is being, for the first time in history, the author of his own story, life, etc., and likes to tell to the world, to everybody who cares, friend or not, what he does, even stupid things, what I'm eating right now. This is astonishing. This has been made possible something that maybe you do not think a lot, but the reduction of cost of telecommunication, the reduction cost of the sensor CCD, the FOS, and the reduction cost of mass storage, because you are storing all the stuff for free. You are paying nothing to put all your pictures or whatever somewhere in the world that costs a lot of money. But there's been the reduction of cost of all the stuff, even movies, is possible thanks to goods. But this was not the case previously, because it costs a lot of money also, the mass storage. This has been thanks also to the progress of technology in mass storage. Has been astonishing. Now you can put in a micro SD, the last version of a gigabyte, something like this, was not even thinkable 10 years ago. So there's been a lot of progress technology making. Okay, we have been talking about personalized in many areas, okay? And you see that you receive messaging from Amazon even about what you bought, what you can be, etc. So it's very seamless, direct, and personalized. And of course, in general, you see that what is called the middleman, you know, the retailer, whoever you want to call it, is going to be bypassed by many teams. That's another area where the economy, digital economy, make huge cut. And cut also workforces, because we have to face also the problem we're going to face. It's clear that there is a concentration in creation of new enterprise, on digital enterprise, a new way to create value. But many of the jobs that were being done are gone, and probably are gone forever. So this is something I've been a little bit touched on, a very sensitive argument for everybody. There is a lot of discussion between economists what is happening or not. And of course, this touches everybody of us. Everybody has friend or son or whatever. First thing that the digital economy did has been automating some kind of jobs that were easy to automate. Okay, that has been the first step. What is now threatening everybody is the new generation of automation, what they call this artificial intelligence jobs, based, this assistant job, the secretary job, even the driver job, where over time the new dream of artificial intelligence, of what the school is all about, will be attacked. I have no opinion about this. Don't ask me, I'm not the guru, say yes, this will happen in 2 years or whatever. For sure, there is a huge effort to get there. There is a huge effort to automatize a lot of complex jobs. And you think about this driverless car, there is a lot of technology there, and there are demonstrators that at a certain degree, I'm not entering the details about the detailed map that are needed, that are not the map that you see on Google Maps, but much more precise one, 3D, real-time, etc., technology, a rider, leader, etc. But all this kind of stuff seems at a certain degree, given the increased capability of computer power that we are able to achieve, will be one day done. I'm not sure it will be 2 years, 5 years, etc. These huge jobs problem that are not the one that you see today, for example, in the battle between Uber and the taxi driver that pay a license to get this kind of stuff, will open a much, much larger problem about, let's say, lower level of education jobs. This could potentially be dramatic for the cohesion and even the existence of our society in the future, because as simple as everybody sees, it's clear that there is a huge concentration of wealth in some company, in some region of the world, like Silicon Valley, Israel, and there are other regions of the world totally left out. So it's a problem. It's a problem because increase inequality at a very large degree. What is more and more happening, and it's very clear trend that I think in the future will be even much more than is today, we are more and more in a global market and the global job market. This is something that has been, let's say, less evident in the 5-10 years. The job market was much more national based, defended by law, by complexity, and this kind of stuff. This is changing, clearly changing. The volatility and the kind of, how to call it, liquidity of this job is changing. There is a need for certain kind of job, less of other. People will move much more than they did. Above all, I wouldn't say in a continent like USA, but for example, in a country like Italy, and of course the knowledge of English will increase rapidly, being now or less the lingua franca as it was late in 2,000 years ago. So you need basic stuff. One of the things we saw, so we enter in something that is a little bit more interesting and less economics. It's also a kind of problem with the typical jobs of what was called the middle class, and we see this effect clearly in every time there is an election, where clearly, for example, in the Brexit voting scheme in USA has been clearly the Londoners were more than others participating to the global creation of wealth through the financial services and also technical services, voting for remaining in Europe, and part of the country, the north, that is more or less the equivalent in UK to the south of Italy, voting for Brexit, thinking that they need to change, just to protest. And we see the same in Italy. So there is also a lot of tension that this kind of revolution is creating in adjusting the democracy. Of course, there's plenty of things that will be still a lot of jobs for mine workers, but the real threat that seems to coming more and more, and even this kind of jobs could be attacked. That is first time ever. Let's say the idea before was you study a lot, you take your degree, and you are safe, and you get a decent salary and a long life or whatever job life, duration life work. It's not anymore because at least, I'm not sure, but there's plenty of things like journalists, like state journalists. Journalists' job is attacked every other day by things like Google News, the reducing value of newspaper as a container of media that is not, of course, as media personalized anymore, and it's not good that people are not buying it anymore. So they have a huge problem, and advertising is totally taken by Facebook and Amazon and Google. You don't know, Amazon is making $2 billion per year of just pure advertising. So there are 3 or 4 companies in the world that package altogether 60–70% of all the advertising spending online. That is a concentration never made before. So, of course, this is an opportunity for developing countries and for new countries, but this might be also creating huge problem to developed countries where we are used to have a standard of living that is a little bit higher. Another point that is a typical point is the consumer power. This is first time ever each of us has a huge power in this making the final decision. Was not the case in the past. Now we have the largest amount of information available. Let's think about, you know, we want to buy a pair of shoes or Nike or a book or whatever. You go, or even, you know, I don't know what today, an oven or a car or a television set. We simply go in a comparative mechanic search engine about pricing or whatever, and just we say, you know, I want this, I want that. And something that in the past was more or less impossible, now you're making a matter of seconds. You can create a very, very strong opinion, a very good opinion, even a scientific opinion about the quality of the TV set, getting the reviews or analyzing the technology. It's just you, how much you want to go there. And you know much more than the person that is selling that TV or selling that fridge or that dishwater or whatever it is. So just a demonstration, and you can get the perfect pricing comparison, and you can even analyze a comparative pricing about the logistics. So it's clear that the power is going toward consumer. Of course, now, as I said, as it's the first time ever, everybody of us can create the content we want. We can create a blog, we can send pictures, we can tell how bad I am or whatever, or good I am or whatever I do. And this create an amplification to our voice that has been never the case in the past, never be. So we can, of course, also search and control the information we want. We can influence consumption decision. We can, as blogger does, and there are people making a lot of money doing this kind of simple stuff, influencing people over social media, and of course, how consumers choose. So here is a little bit start to be a little bit academic here, but we move a little bit of ahead, otherwise we don't get to the point. Well, the other thing that is important in digital economy is how the pricing of goods are going, which direction are taking. This is a little bit technical, but at least is near what the economists say is that, of course, we go near something near, at least as a trend, to what is called near perfect competition. Let's take the example of the oven, of the shoes, or the chairs, or television set. If you want really to know which is the price of this kind of, let's say, standardized good, you can really compare real time. This implicitly reduces the cost, the pricing in general, because the perfect competition, as has been theorized by the economists, is getting there. So this is the way you can buy, you know, these lamps or that door at a certain degree, assuming it's a standardized good, at the best price you want in a very simple term. It was not the case in the past. This implicitly, it's one of the explanations has been given for the reason why the inflation, even in this kind of fast recovery of the worldwide economy, is not taking up, because the pricing now are much more comparable than it was in the past. Okay. This is one point I would like to make. This kind of dynamics, very well known. That is this kind of approach. Well, there is just one or two companies for every area that it takes to dominate the worldwide market. We see this in e-commerce, with this in search, we see this in social media. So we see this more or less in every area. So one of the key trends, that is totally new, that you create one digital or two digital company that value trillions against the world. This is something totally new, because it was not the case in the past. Maybe we are reaching the end. Of course, it's much longer. As we have been talking about plug and play business model, you have been meaning, yes, this is something that is changing. Now people, in the past, they just, and the company, just one business model. This business model are moving much faster. And the company are obliged even to scan every other day to say if this is wrong or not. I can make a very simple example of that. Amazon was selling just his own kind of stuff. Now it's selling his own stuff, but it's selling also the competitive stuff. And when you go over the site, you can see that for the same type of shoes, you got the Amazon one, but also the competitor of the same item. This is a revolutionary kind of business model, because, and believe it or not, they make much more money from the margin they take from competitors, let's say the ones, because they get a percentage. Because what they sell is not the product, but they sell the traffic, because they sell the traffic to that guys, and they get between 2 and 8% of this. Okay, I will go very quickly to the end, otherwise we'll go, no, of course there is this idea that there is a lot of mismatch between talents, and there is a lot of ideas about converging all over the world about supply. This will not talk. So I think in general, what we can say that the key technology, and we finish here, the key technology that has been enabling during the last 20 years all this revolution and what is all digital about has been internet. Without internet, we will still remain the era where there was enterprise with a PC, that means a kind of secluded silos. Here everybody tends to talk to everybody. This is one of the largest ever revolution that humanity has been ever facing. And we are just at the beginning of it. We're going to see much more. It's impossible to forecast where we are going and which will be the direction, but for sure it's something that has never happened before, to have a kind of more than half of the humanity. And if you talk about, we talk about the humanity that doesn't have something to eat, etc., we are reaching 70, 80% of humanity accessing the same information technology. So the world is really changing, and digital technology is absolutely something which will change the next tens of years. Thank you.